In the best part of the last hour, trying to find articles talking about this, and I've even skimmed through the videos that the Scottish Parliament's YouTube channel pumped out today, and as far as I'm aware, there's not really been much of a mention. That said, Patrick Harvie is here to give us the inside scoop, and something that I covered at the time, which I was extremely pissed off about at the time, seems as if it's been officially implemented into our law. As he says here, a couple of important decisions at the Rainbow Unicorn Parliament have been made today, which will go unreported. Wonder why that is. We previously passed legislation to extend the right to vote to some prisoners and to everyone resident in Scotland regardless of citizenship. Tonight we fully implemented these positive changes. He then continues, and we voted to continue our scrutiny throughout this summer, including hybrid and online sessions, a good contrast with Westminster where so many MPs have been excluded from taking part. These measures are welcome extensions of so-called democracy, even if they don't make the headlines. It's funny. Granted, Thin Lips in their conference last year made reference to the fact that they were intending to do this at some point. Grant the right to vote to asylum seekers and refugees and anybody living in Scotland, as well as native Scots. And it went rather silent during the run-up to our election, go figure, and it continued to be rather silent, and then they passed it under the quiet of night, if you will. And now it's come into fruition. That's probably why it's not going to be reported in the news extensively. I don't really think the public wanted that. The public were never asked, and quite frankly these people have gone behind our backs to implement something that I think is one of the most treacherous things conceivable. Thankfully, the Green Party's attempt to allow it for asylum seekers, whether or not they had had their claim accepted, so effectively someone could rock up and they're waiting for their claim to be processed, the Green Party, Patrick Harvie and his cronies, wanted them to be able to vote. They also wanted failed asylum seekers to be able to vote. That was thankfully put in the bin where it belongs. But the same can't be said for the rest of the representation bill, as it was referred to. There's no mention in the Parliament's website, there's no mention on the SNP's Twitter, there's no mention anywhere of this. Whether or not I'm early to the party, so to speak, remains to be seen. So on their Facebook at the time of this announcement back in February time, or one of the SNP's MPs on Facebook even, the right to vote in Rainbow Unicorn Parliament and local government elections has been extended today with the passing of the Scottish Elections Franchise and Representation Bill. This bill extends voting rights to all foreign nationals with leave to remain, including all those granted refugee status. It also extends candidacy rights to foreign nationals with indefinite leave to remain and to those with pre-settled status.
The Scottish Elections, Franchise and Representation Bill will extend voting rights to all foreign nationals living in Scotland who have leave to remain in the UK, including those with refugee status, and to prisoners serving 12 months or less. The bill will also grant foreign nationals with indefinite leave to remain the right to stand for election and hold office as MSPs or councillors.
Now, the obvious springs to mind in regards to why they would go ahead and pass legislation such as this. That being, of course, to ensure that they win and retain power next election and every election after that for as long as possible. There's also, potentially, or hypothetically, an attempt to sway any independence referendum, if and when it comes. But fundamentally, as far as I'm concerned, there's a bit more to it than just allowing more people to vote to shape elections in their favour. And that is the fact that it is undermining our birthright completely. It's demeaning the whole purpose of citizenship in the first place. And it's making everybody that comes to Scotland just effectively as Scottish as we are. All this talk of inequality, all this talk right about now about fucking racism, all this talk continuously of the need to create a fairer, sustainable, greener Scotland. Reducing inequalities, now how do you do that in theory? Sounds great with the namby-pamby sprinkles and rainbow dust, but you push that to one side and you're left with a burning truth. You have to pull everybody down to the lowest common denominator, or in this case, just pull down white men. That's per usual. But I'll come to the stuff on race in just a second. I'm getting off topic. The point is, The idea of global citizenship, one world, global citizenship, courtesy of the United Nations, this concept that we're all just the same. Everybody can come to Scotland and be Scottish. So it's only fitting that we allow everybody that comes to Scotland, regardless of their fucking immigration status, the right to vote. You know, what's next? It's only a matter of time before we do give it to asylum seekers. We've given it to refugees, we've given it to foreigners. They've got no loyalty to this country. Absolutely none at all. You might think they do in your rainbow unicorn utopia, but they don't really. Or not all. It opens the doorway to people to come here and flout our system purposely, with ill intentions. You have completely demeaned our birthright, who we are as people, by giving that right to everyone. Affording the same rights that should be inherently ours to everybody that walks through our fucking border. The only reason that I'm not getting as frustrated as I did in the previous video on this is because of that video. I knew this was coming. I'm just surprised that it's taken this long for it to be finalised. These people do not represent the Scottish people. We want a reduction in immigration, they're screaming for it. You know, that's one thing. But things like this, about foreign nationals having the right to vote here, it's just the most nonsensical, stupendous thing that I can think of that these people have come up with to date. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's treachery of the First Order. You've effectively signed our country off. And of course, the real reason, or one off anyway, that these people are doing these things is to entice more people over here. They all end up in England, so what could we do to get as many over here? Well, you roll out the red carpet and you ponder and you grovel and you bootlick. And before I go any further, I did find this bit rather comical though, where he talks about prisoners. And somebody says here, if I could find it, exceptions when it comes to prisoners. It covers prisoners serving sentences less than 12 months. And this guy says, but 2 weeks ago you passed a plan to stop anyone from getting a sentence under 12 months. So you've just passed a law to give rights to prisoners who aren't going to exist. And he's not wrong. So anyway, in racism, I couldn't leave without mentioning the SNP's Humza Yousaf, who loves to put the boot in, loves to proclaim there's a rampant problem of Islamophobia and inequality in this country, and he is one of these people that I am convinced is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He really does love exploiting the rainbow unicorn system for his own ends. As he says here, no black MSP ever, no female BAME MSP ever. Out with SNP and Labour, no other party has ever had a non-white MSP elected in 20 years of devolution. All 4 BAME MSPs elected have been Scottish Pakistani males. You mean Pakistanis living in Scotland. This is a responsibility and frankly a failure of all of us, regardless of party. It's a failure of party, it's a failure of government that they don't shove people into positions of government in our country purely because of their skin colour. A meritocracy seems to go out the window when we're referring to identity politics, and that seems to be the new normal in this country, isn't it? 20 years ago, the population of this country that was considered black or from another ethnic minority background was around 2%. In 2011 it was 4%. I'm not entirely sure what the fuck sort of miracle you're expecting to see with a population that small in size. Who knows what it is now, but the fact of the matter remains, every time there's a disparity in this country, every time statistics showcase any form of disparity, it's racism. Inequality is rampant, racism. Coronavirus disproportionately affects black and ethnic minorities, apparently, racism. It's always racism. You can't win, but they've got the audacity to preach about how diversity is this cohesive strength. It's the fucking greatest strength that this country has ever stumbled across, and yet we look across the pond, doesn't really look like it's working out, eh? Of course, though, that's the white man's fault too, yeah?